Well, let me first of all thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His kindness. I am in Pakistan now for the first time in many years. I've been looking forward to this visit, and you'll be happy to know that I had no problems with Pakistani immigration. It's only a brief visit and there are no public lectures during this visit, but I hope to be back in October, inshallah, in Dhul Qa'dah, and on that occasion, we'll organize a one-day seminar on Islamic eschatology, Saturday, October 26th, Ilmu Akhir al-Zaman. There'll be information on my website, inshallah. Those who know me would know that I responded to the 9/11 attacks on America. Within a brief period of time, I published a booklet, a Muslim response to the attack on America. I think it was published in December of 2001. It's on my website, and anyone can read it. And in that booklet, I came to the conclusion quite rapidly that 9/11 was planned and executed, of course, by the Zionists. The only ones who are not prepared as yet to say that it's the Israeli Mossad are those Mulvis and Maulanas and Shuyukh and Muftis who are in the United States and have to depend on their bread and butter to keep silent. The rest of the world knows it's the Israeli Mossad that did it. My language is a bit harsh now, but that's because a lot of blood has flowed, my people's blood. So I can be excused for being harsh in my language now. And I came to the conclusion that they did it, they planned it, and they executed not only to wage their so-called bogus war and terror, when they are themselves developing the greatest terror apparatus the world has ever seen, the Zionist terror apparatus in support of the terrorist state of Israel, but that Israel could not assume her destiny that she is struggling to achieve of becoming the ruling state in the world, so long as there is a credible military capacity in the world of Islam that could resist her. And that credible military capacity, of course, is in Pakistan, nuclear weapons. And I felt that 9/11 was crafted to give to NATO a foothold in Afghanistan, much more than a foothold in Afghanistan, so that from Afghanistan, they could do their dirty work in Pakistan. That they're not in Afghanistan because of Afghanistan. They're not in Afghanistan because of some fellow named Osama bin Laden. That's nonsense. They are in Afghanistan because of Pakistan. That's primary reason. And they are poised in Afghanistan to try to provoke as best as they can civil war in Pakistan. They've been doing the best that they could do to provoke civil war in Pakistan. To provoke, for example, elements within the Pakistan armed forces to revolt, so that they could get some kind of an excuse to intervene, to save the world from a nuclear holocaust that they're going to be broadcasting, of course, on CNN and Al Jazeera. It is surprising to me that the attack on Pakistan has not as yet taken place. I'm surprised. I thought it would happen long ago. But I don't see how they can announce that they're leaving Afghanistan when their basic mission has not yet been accomplished. Unless it be, again, deception. Deception. That they say they are leaving in order to deceive you, so that you may relax and that you may let your guards down a bit. So I would actually accept that with much more than a grain of salt, that the NATO is leaving Afghanistan. I think that they have set their eyes, their guard on Pakistan, and they want to eliminate Pakistan from the nuclear club by the hook or by the crook. And events in Afghanistan are therefore linked to the fate of Pakistan. The fact that there is resistance in Afghanistan, indigenous resistance in Afghanistan to the presence of Western military forces is nothing new. We are accustomed to that. The Afghans have resisted the British in the past. They've resisted that Zionist, undercover Zionist state called the Soviet Union in the past. And it is no surprise that they should be resisting NATO. It's been going on for a long time. The Afghans will not submit. They will not bend their knee and submit to Western military intervention in Afghanistan. We will know that they have succeeded when the last Western military presence in Afghanistan has been not only booted out, but they're scared to come back in at that time. Not the slay of the hand to leave to be able to return. There is a hadith, of course, about Khorasan, but even if there was no hadith, the evidence is there on the ground that perhaps the only part of the world of Islam which has survived the onslaught of modern Western civilization is Khorasan. The rest of the world of Islam dresses up in jackets and ties. All right? The rest of the world of Islam is imitating in their dress code, for example. The beard is going. Sometimes it's completely gone, or sometimes it's called an apology of a beard, like the Saudi beard. But in Khorasan, the beard has survived. The hijab is disappearing. In Pakistan, it's collapsing. It's collapsing quite rapidly in Pakistan. But in Khorasan, the women are still covered. So one can see that this is a part of the world which has not as yet been penetrated. And therefore it is not surprising that that part of the world of Islam which has not been penetrated has survived with a culture, an indigenous culture intact, an indigenous economy intact, an indigenous political system intact, and military freedom. That it is from that part of the world that resistance can be launched, which the Prophet ﷺ prophesied would eventually be successful and would liberate Jerusalem. I believe that we are on the verge of the great wars that the Christians say would lead to the Armageddon, and our Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam described as the Malhama. That these great wars are eventually going to witness the clash of the two ruling military blocs in the world. And such a clash will be mutually destructive. It would therefore now be possible. One cannot consider it to be impossible. It's credible that in a world post-Malhama, where the ruling blocs have been destroyed, mutually destroyed, that what remains of military forces in the world makes it possible for us to envisage an armed Islamic force coming out of Khorasan. I don't use the word Taliban. I don't use it. I used it once upon a time. I've stopped using it. I prefer to use the term the authentic Islamic resistance. And the authentic Islamic resistance will embrace all Muslims who are waging a struggle, an armed struggle, for liberation from occupation, and from oppression in Afghanistan and territories around Afghanistan. These are two ahadith. Okay. Whether Imam al-Mahdi is born or is not a subject I will discuss. I have a desire to discuss, or I have ever discussed. No, I think there are many other scholars, so let them speak on that subject and save Imran Hussain for something else. When will Imam al-Mahdi emerge? That's a better question for me than the one about his birth. I said that Imam al-Mahdi will only come when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His wisdom sends him. It's not the United Nations, it's not the government of Pakistan. It is Allah who will decide, not even the government of Iran. When will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordain the advent of Imam al-Mahdi? I said it's only after Dajjal has completed his mission. Because you have to have a comprehensive view of ilmu akhirul zaman when answering these questions. So when will Dajjal complete his mission? I said before Dajjal can complete his mission, Israel has to make the effort to replace the United States as the ruling state in the world. There are some signs by which you can tell that Israel has now replaced the United States as the ruling state in the world. Number one, a new monetary system in which the center of the system is located in Israel and in the hands of the Zionists, the banking system. We are now in the process of moving towards that. Paper money disappearing, and welcome to the cashless world. And all the cattle in the world would say, what a wonderful world we now have. Cashless world, that's the cattle. But people who have a little bit of sense in their head will know that this world of electronic money is a financial Guantanamo. When Israel has this monetary system of only electronic money controlled by the banking system, which in turn is controlled by the Zionists, you know that Israel is on its way to ruling the world. But then there's the other aspect of the subject, the great wars. So we have to wait for these great wars to commence, which I believe is going to be soon. I am surprised that it's not as yet started. I expect probably it will be a Turkish invasion of Syria. Could be an Israeli attack on Iran. Whatever it is, when these wars start, I think we will then be able to see the moves on the chessboard indicating that Israel is on its way to replace the United States. It's not only that the United States has to lose its financial leadership of the world, but also I believe that the United States has to be lured into a military trap where the United States is facing military defeat. It could be in Saudi Arabia. It could be in Saudi Arabia. And only Israel can intervene to save the United States. So we've not seen these things as yet, which is why it is not correct to say that Israel has already assumed the status of ruling state in the world. So these things must happen before Dajjal can emerge, and then before Dajjal can proclaim himself to be the Messiah, Al-Masih, and only then could we see the advent of Imam al-Mahdi and then the return of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. So when I say 15, when I say 20, when I say 25 years, I'm sticking my neck out. My critics are all the time so happy to get ammunition to attack me. But I'm sticking my neck out to give these figures in order that people may not be living in dreamland that we're 300 years or 500 years away. That's why. The Hizb ut-Tahrir have held on to this fig leaf, misinterpreting it. that this is the proof for Hizb ut-Tahrir. This one solitary piece of a hadith, one word, is the proof that Hizb ut-Tahrir is holding on to declare that Khilafah will be restored before Imam Mehdi comes. No. My interpretation of the hadith, and of course you know the rule that when I give an opinion, don't accept it until you are convinced that it is correct. My interpretation of the hadith is that a Khalifa would die and there would be dispute concerning succession. And at that time, a man will come out of Medina and hurry towards Mecca, Imam Mehdi. I say that the Khalifa who will die will be a Muslim ruler. And that Muslim ruler, it should not be difficult for us to come to the conclusion, be a Saudi king. And we can already anticipate with just a few facts at our disposal. Ordinary people, just ordinary people, far less research scholars, that there is going to be tremendous dissension in the Saudi family in the coming years concerning succession. So, in fact, when Naif died, they were fighting. The Saudi princes were fighting, and it was caught on television and broadcast. So vociferous was the differences of opinion and rivalries within the princes of the Saudi family. I think the weight of evidence is heavily on my side that the Khalifa who will die will be a Saudi king. I do not think that Khilafah can be restored until Imam al-Mahdi emerges. But I have not pulled this opinion out of my hat. No. It is based on my Islamic eschatology, Ilmu Akhiru Zaman. The Quran speaks of Gog and Magog, Ya'juj and Ma'juj. I have a book entitled An Islamic View of Gog and Magog in the Modern World. I made a mistake in the first edition, and we all make mistakes. And I've corrected the mistake in the second edition. In the first edition, I could not at that time distinguish between Russia and the Soviet Union. I didn't have enough facts at my disposal. I didn't know the role that Wall Street played in the Bolshevik Revolution. I didn't know it. That Wall Street almost financed the Bolshevik Revolution. I just didn't know it. So now that I could recognize the distinction between the Soviet Union, which was an undercover Zionist contraption, and Russia, it is now possible for me to say that it was the Soviet Union which was with part of Gog and Magog, okay, and not Russia. And once the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia is now returning to Rome. And the Prophet ﷺ has prophesied that we will make an alliance with Rome. If you want to believe that Rome is located somewhere in Chicago, fine, that's your choice. Or Rome is in Youngstown, Washington, that's your choice. You can take it and that's the door, go with it. The rest of us know that Rome was Constantinople. At the time when the revolution, when the Quran was revealed, Rome was Constantinople. If you cannot understand that, go back to school. Rome was Constantinople. And when the Ottoman Sultan Muhammad Fatih conquered Constantinople in 1453, I don't think he became a Christian. So he doesn't qualify to be the Sultan of Rome. I believe he is still a Muslim. Huh? I understand he took the greatest cathedral of Rome and converted it to a masjid, which was something shameful, which was something disgraceful, which was something manifestly sinful, and I thank Allah who's given me life long enough to say this. Rome is now returning. Russia is returning to Rome. Second edition of the book, I've corrected my mistake. I said Russia is not Magog. Gog and Magog is the Anglo-American Zionist alliance. That is Gog and Magog. And Russia is Rome, with whom we'll make an alliance. So long as Gog and Magog remain one of the most powerful forces in the world, it is not possible for us to restore the Khilafah. No. This is my opinion. But that does not mean that I say fold your arms and sit down and do nothing. No. While all the sheep are going on election day and voting in elections, and as a consequence of their vote, they are validating the Zionist substitute to the Khilafah. Shall I repeat it? While all the sheep are going in election after election and voting for Tom and for Dick and for Harry, and in the process of voting, they are validating time and again the Zionist created substitute to the Khilafah. We should be engaged in the process of public education to try to convert the sheep into people with some sense. I wish you the best of luck in that effort, because it's difficult for them to understand. You don't sit down and do nothing. Not because we cannot restore the Khilafah does it mean that we cannot embark on a program of public education to get them to know that your hearts must be with Khilafah, not with this Zionist substitute for the Khilafah. It is to be regretted that Dr. Iqbal did not recognize the modern Republican state with its parliament as a Zionist crafted bogus substitute for the Khilafah. And he gave his verdict in the reconstruction of religious thought in Islam. I have the greatest respect for Dr. Iqbal. I consider him to be a great scholar. I consider him to be my teacher. But if your teacher makes a mistake, with the greatest respect you have to correct him. And I expect that my students will correct me if I make a mistake. And that is no act of disrespect at all. So when he put into the reconstruction of religious thought in Islam, which very few Pakistanis have ever read, that the modern Republican state with its parliament, according to the Turkish ijtihad, which he finds acceptable, is an adequate substitute for the Khilafah. He set the stage for what has now been created, which gives us these elections, more like a circus really, every few years, and all the sheep go and vote. So embark upon a program of public education to teach the people. No, you must be waging a struggle to try to restore your own political system. No matter if you cannot restore it until Imam Mehdi, never mind, but you keep on making the effort.